if you already know almost all the verb tenses in English, but sometimes you confuse them, or sometimes you don't know what is the difference between one verb tense and the other one, this video is for you, alright? So let's start by talking about something that maybe we don't think very often. When we think about a verbal tense, there are two things we should pay attention to. The first one is, let's say, the meaning of the verb tense. Is it in the past and it is over? Is it still happening in the present? Is it something that frequently happens? You know, that sort of thing. The other thing we have to pay attention to is, let's say, the technicalities, right? Do I use do, does, do I insert ing? What should I use with this verbal tense, okay? So think about the meaning, right? The usage and the technicalities of a verbal tense, So let's start by the simple past because it's simple, right? So the simple past, what do you have? You have a person and a verb, okay? And that happened in the past, of course, right? So, I'm going to draw a timeline here, right? This is the time. This is where we are. We call it present, if you don't know. And I can tell you that something happened in the past, right? And I'm going to put an exclamation point here. I'll explain later why that exclamation point is here. What do we do here? Basically, in most of the cases, we are going to use verbs in the past. I'm going to represent verbs in the past by writing ed here, but of course we know that not all the verbs in the past are just with the ed in the end. We have the example of the past of get, which is got, the past of go, which is, tell yourselves, went, very good, the past of, write, which is wrote, that's nice. But I'm going to represent all of those things, including, of course, the regular verbs. Remember, regular verbs are those verbs that end in ed, right? Like, liked, watched, walked, and etc., right? Okay, remember that it's in this verbal tense that we add did when we want to ask a question, right? A short parenthesis here. Every time we have auxiliaries, right? Like did, does, do, will, can, could, should, would, may, might, alright? I'm not including in that list verb to be and have, right? But all of those other little words that help us ask questions, right? So every time you have them, so I'm going to put it here, will, do, etc. Let's imagine the verb is walk. You never add s or to or the ing or the ed form, okay? So why did I open this parenthesis right now? Because what I'm going to explain to you regarding did is going to be applied to all those other auxiliaries, let's call it this way. So when you use did, the verb doesn't need to be in the ed form. I mean, it must not be in the ed form, okay? All right, so fair enough. That's our simple past. We should talk about another past, which is kind of strange to us, which is the present perfect. First thing about present perfect that is strange, we call present, right? And actually it's a past. Look, I have to tell you, I have to be honest with you, depending on the grammars, they are going to have lots of explanation, kinds of explanation on why we call it present perfect, and they all make sense. But I think it's more economical, more direct, and very accurate to consider present perfect a kind of past, all right? And many very respectable grammarians agree with me. So I'm just telling you that I'm going to choose this approach, but you can find other approaches around, right? And the approach I am here to tell you about is we use present perfect, which is person, have or has, of course, depending on the person, and the third form of the verb, which is the past participle of the verb, right? I'll talk about that in a second, but we use this when we are talking about an action that happened in the past, but we don't know when it happened. Okay, just my parenthesis here. Remember, past participle, third form, it's because all verbs in English have three forms, right? If you are in doubt about that, there is a video called Forms of the Verb, something like that, and you can watch it. Okay, so, fair enough, we use present perfect to talk about an action that happened in the past and we don't know when it happened. It's not important when it happened. We don't want to mention when it happened. Okay? Nice. Why is that so confusing for Brazilians? Because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense we have to use a different kind of verbal tense just because we don't know or we don't want to mention when it happened. Let me give you an example. In Portuguese, right? Eu assisti Titanic ontem. Okay? It would be here in English, right? I watched, right here, I watched Titanic yesterday, and that's why I have the exclamation point here. But let's imagine I just say, eu assisti Titanic, right? People are talking about Titanic, and they want to explain the movie to me, and then I say, no, eu assisti Titanic, right? Same sentence, right? But in English, we wouldn't say, I watched Titanic. And we say, no, I've watched Titanic, right? Okay, so the big problem with Brazilians is they think this should always be understood as eu tenho assistido, and it's not. It's simply eu assisti, right? One more example. I have read that book 3 times, right? So I did those things in the past, right? They are over, they are here. I just don't want to mention when they happened.